is good! Ferris State wins the basketball game!
You got it! Game winner!
Rips the shot and it's a score for Ferris State! What a play right there by the Bulldogs!
And so those are the kind of the guys I really wanted to model my mentality after.
When it's bad weather, it kind of comes down to grit. I think our team has a lot of that.
It's like you lose a game, like it hurts so much.
Like we're very culture-based, and so that's what initially got me here.
You're listening to Behind the Bulldogs, brought to you by Ferris State Athletics.
It is Behind the Bulldogs, brought to you by the Car Center. Brandon Worth, Joe Nagy with you here this Friday. Going to be a fantastic episode, Joe.
What's up? Dude, vibes are high. End of the week, put the nose to the grindstone. We're celebrating. Dude, it's a good time.
It is a good time. We're getting healthier. Well, at least one of us is getting healthier after an illness, but we are still on the grind, continuing to pump out episodes. And we got a great interview for you today. Ignatius Jackson of Track and Field stopping by. Glad to hear his insight, especially on the other perspective. We hear a lot of the distance side from myself and some of the other guests, but the sprinting crew, what they do to get dialed in, pretty cool stuff there, and really nice to have Ignatius on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. All-time interview, and it's a good time. Also, he has a Hall of Fame name.
Hall of Fame.
That is an incredible one. So,
yes.
So glad that he was able to stop by and kind of just talk to us, which was a blast. But we got a little bit more of the show to hop into before we get to there. So why don't we do that, Brandon?
We should. But first, Joe, I mean, we probably should pay the bills just so we can finish the podcast.
Probably should.
Yeah. So without further ado, big thanks to the Car Center from Big Rapids.
Yeah. Thanks to the Car Center, man. This whole thing is brought to you by the Car Center in Big Rapids. The Car Center, guess what? Does body work on all makes and models. So it's no sweat. When you need body work, request the best. Request the Car Center off Northwood Drive in Rogers Heights and online at carcentermi.com. Check it out.
Whoop, whoop. Big thanks to them as a sponsor for this podcast. Without further ado, we will start back from, I believe we'll go back all the way to February 15th when we left off last.
Yes.
Women's take a tough loss to Saginaw Valley State, 47-44, in what was a really sloppy basketball game. The men's, though, get back on track. They win over Saginaw Valley to avenge an early season loss at University Center, 78-72. For the girls' game, I mean, there were 48 combined turnovers in this game. 48.
Yeah, man, that's a little rough.
It was really hard to find any momentum, and you got to give credit to Saginaw because even though they had 30 turnovers, they still won the basketball game. And if any team can do that, they're going to be very happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's tough when you go into that game because it feels like nothing's really going for you, and it's just really going to be the team that makes the least amount of mistakes, even though both teams was just kind of in shambles. So It's an unfortunate one. I'm glad we kind of got that game out of the way. There's only a few more left in the regular season, so I'd rather have that game now than, in the tournament where you really can't have anything after that. So we'll see how that plays out. They also went to Wayne State February 17 for the women's side. A big-time bounce-back win, 74-64. They won that one. Men's also went to Wayne State. They get a W as well. Close one, though, right?
In the men's game, yeah, it was pretty close. I mean, you talk 8 points. That's I think anything single digits.
I scrolled down to Wayne State, and there was one where the first time that they met was a lot closer, but then my finger slipped and didn't scroll again, so I was like, oh, sick, I'm at the bottom. But missed. We're still good. So 2 W's that way, but then GV was a little bit rough one.
GV was a rough one. We'll get to that one here in just a little bit. But I think especially the Wayne State game, Wayne State is a better team than people give credit for. Yes, they're at the bottom of the GLIAC table, but they are still a very good basketball team. They got a really good coaching staff, a new coaching staff as well. Taking one of our alums, Coach McAfee as well, who's doing great things down there. But especially on Play for K Day as well, good to see the women's get back on track against Wayne State. I think especially for that game, it really meant a lot for them to get back on top and get that win, especially for the way they played because they got a little bit more gritty. And I think especially Caden Blanchard had herself a day. Double-double, 23 and 10. Really big stuff from KB on that day.
Yeah, something slight, something easy is really what you like to see. I mean, especially when you look at it, I mean, 2 players on the Ferris side getting, or excuse me, 3 players. Excuse me, I can't even talk.
Three team players.
3 team players getting in double digits is a pretty big time. I mean, we've seen a little bit better with scoring kind of all throughout the board, but if each person on the stat sheet gets on the board, I think that's a solid day so far, especially just a really good time. And then especially with Caden Blanchard just leading those scoring. I mean, can't have it any other way.
Yeah, of course. And especially on the men's side as well. I mean, the shots were kind of sputtering at first, but then Ethan Erickson, he just returned to form immediately. He led with 26 points, Dang Ring adding 10 boards, Amari with 7 assists. I think especially for this team, being able especially to see some contributions from the bench, even though I think the biggest thing, really, they were able to force 12 turnovers against Wayne State, 13 points off of those turnovers. That was really key for them in that victory, and especially to close out that home slate with a win that weekend. We will get to the inevitable. Grand Valley got swept by the Lakers. Unfortunate. The women's game really just could not get any momentum in the second half offensively. We really kind of sputtered a lot of turnovers. That's really about kind of the downfall for us over the last couple of games, that we've kind of sputtered a little bit. I mean, we only had 11 points in the second half. That's what we had in the first quarter against Grand Valley. So only 11 points in the second half. It's just not going to get it done against a top 5 team in the country, let alone Grand Valley State right now being ranked as number 2 in the country. Yeah,
that was a tough one. I mean, GV now sits alone at the top of the conference. We sit at second at 12-3. So it's a tough one. It's a tough loss. You always hate to see those kind of performances where, you wish you could get it back. That's a fluke. It's just one-off type thing. But especially there, I mean, you still see it though. I mean, it's not the greatest thing, but I think it shows you that there's still stuff to work on this late in the season. And, with a couple games left, with conference going, I mean, Davenport, Wisconsin, Parkside, and Purdue Northwest is 3 good teams who still are going to provide us a really solid challenge, but you're going to be able to really fix some of those mistakes and work out the kinks a little bit that you saw against the Lakers. So I'm not really too worried about after that loss. I mean, you're always due for one kind of a little bit bad of a loss in the season, I think. I'm glad it came right now, like I said, rather than when you get it in those type of games where it's real late, your game might come in the tournament, and hopefully we got that one out of the way.
Yeah, for sure. And especially on the men's side, losing by 10 there to the Lakers, 87-77, the final score. The Lakers got out to a really hot start. I think they scored, if I remember correctly, I'll do the math here on the live stats here. I believe they scored right around 14 of the first 21 points, I think, in the first. Yes, it was 14-7 early on in that game, and especially the amount of shots they hit. I believe it was 10-2 at one point as well after a made 3-point shot. So when you look at that in perspective and you're like, whoa, that's a hot start. And really, Grand Valley just matched us the rest of the way. That's all they needed to do after that hot start. We got out a little slow and we just couldn't catch up. Grand Valley, got to give them credit. They matched us the rest of the way, and they really did a good job of scoring in the paint as well compared to the first time that we played them here at Wink. I mean, they finished with 36 in the paint, and it was very inevitable. They were penetrating, they were making layups, and they were knocking on 3-point shots, and that's a good recipe for success in shot efficiency and scoring points, especially against a team that's really good and already beat you early on this season.
Yeah, that's a little bit tough. But tomorrow, the day that we're recording this is Friday, so tomorrow's Saturday. Both teams will be in Davenport to not close season out, but just get the second to last weekend of the regular season closed out. So hopefully that'll be a big time W and clean up this last road stand and then kind of just get back on track.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll go over now into softball, who is in action over the weekend as well. They get a win over Thomas More. They're in the later end of the tournament, 9-0. But they also fall early on in 2 games on Saturday, as well as I believe 1 on Friday at the Music City Invitational. Finished 1-3, still early on in the year. They played Northwood, who's a really good team. And then especially on Saturday, they played 2 high-quality opponents as well. Trevecca Nazarene, a team that was ranked last year, and Harding as well, a regionally ranked team. The offense is going to get there. I mean, the runs across the board, we were putting hits on the board. We still had quite a few errors, but I think those things will get cleaned up once you get outside. Obviously, what Coach Schumann mentioned when we interviewed him, if you haven't found that, find that in the interview below, or I should say the interview in the feed below if you haven't already, as well as all the previous episodes here behind the Bulldogs. But I think that'll just take time. Fielding takes time to get outside, and Mother Nature just really has kind of given us a lot of curveballs so far.
That's the thing, is especially when you're playing a sport, excuse me, a sport. Yeah. Sport. Had a little bit of a frog in my throat a little bit. But especially when you're playing a sport that is outside and you're now in a spot where you're like Michigan, even Midwest states as a whole, it's tough to get out there and be able to kind of match some of these teams who are from down south and who can be outside all the way, like basically through the whole year, which is really tough. And going from inside hitting in the cage and kind of just having that type of deal, then going outside where you have just a lot more kind of intangibles and a lot more uncontrollables in there. It gets a little bit tough, but I mean, you saw it. We were able to turn around against Thomas More, Missouri S&T. I mean, right now, as we're talking, it's the bottom of the 6 against Indianapolis, 1-5. We're trailing. Yeah. So offense kind of doing a little bit more of a slowdown, but I think especially seeing how we've been able to play against some of these good teams, Offense has been struggling a little bit, but I think there's a lot more bright spots than people can tell.
Yeah, getting outside live BP, that'll make a huge difference when this team's able to get outside for sure. Also, hockey finishing up. Really tough weekend against Bemidji State, falling 4-1 as well as 3-2 in overtime. Thursday night, as this was a unique game. Thursday night's game was really good. It was an exciting game. Unfortunately, just falling on the wrong end of overtime game winner there in Bemidji. And then Saturday, the guys just really looked taxed. It just looked like Thursday night took everything out of them for Friday night's game, and Bemidji just flat out dominated. There's no other analysis needed for that one.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, Bemidji's at the top of the CCHA for a reason. Those two wins, get them to 37 points overall. So I think they're going to be locked in. I mean, that OT win was kind of big time that OT loss kind of holding them back just a little bit. But right now, I think we're going to be sitting at 8. Looks like Bemidji is also going to be the team that we're going to be facing. As of right now, the team that we will be facing for the CCHA tournament. But I mean, you also got Minnesota State, St. Thomas, and Bowling Green all within 2 points of each other. So the top 4 could have a massive swing. We still don't know who we'll be playing in the first round, but we do have Northern Michigan coming home this weekend that we'll be playing tonight at 7:07. If you hear the podcast and you want to make your way over to Eau-Glaben, for sure do so. And then if you're also listening on the radio right now, then head on over there at 5:07 when the puck drop.
Yes, absolutely. Finishing out as well, track and field in action at the tune-up. Some great overall results in new events for a lot of competitors, as well as getting final seed marks for this upcoming GLIACs. Really good performances across the board. Saw a lot of great things from this team. It'll be exciting going in to Saginaw in the Ryder Center once again there at the Doug Hansen track and be able to rip one more time for the championships for a lot of the seniors, as well as some getting their first crack at a championship. So it's going to be really fun. Can't wait to look forward to that indoor action. You can follow along on Saginaw Valley's track and field page. I believe the link will also be provided at ferrisstatebulldogs.com, so you can follow along with all of the Bulldog trackletes, including Ignatius and myself and company, all weekend long in all of our events. So it's going to be super cool. Can't wait for that as well. As big shout out, especially for tennis, for continuing their season on wins against Northwood. Congratulations. Home wins against the T-Wolves. Love to see it as they continue on here this season.
Yeah, it's big time. That's what we like to see, especially kind of getting into GLIAC play that'll be starting up in just a few weeks. I'm really looking forward to this tennis squad.
Yeah, you know what they say. Let's do that tennis. You know what I mean?
Let's do that tennis.
That's what Chance the Rapper said, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure. It's hockey though, right? I think actually that is an L skit. That's the one I was referring to. You know Laszlo Holmes, right? The greatest reporter in entire sports history.
For sure, man. I for sure know who
you are giving me completely the side eye right now on the podcast.
Sure, I know that is.
We'll get video up for at one point in this podcast so we can have these exchanges, because you guys just miss the absolute most epic glare Joe Nagy just gave me.
A lot of our interaction you can't even tell because audio only, but we're looking forward to getting this thing on video.
Absolutely. So without further ado, we stall no more. We'll send you to the interview room with Ignatius Jackson of Ferris State Track and Field. So without further ado,
let's get into the interview. Now joining us in studio, member of the Ferris State men's track and field team, Ignatius Jackson. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. What's up? I'm glad to be here, man.
Good to have you, Iggy. And we'll start with the first question. Obviously, you have a very unique first name. We got to ask, especially at track meets, how many times has your name, approximately that you could guess, been mispronounced by the public address announcer at track meets?
Man, so many times, honestly. It's very embarrassing, especially when all the girls listening, you feel me?
What's the wildest one you've heard?
Ignatius, which is like which doesn't even make sense because my name doesn't have a I-O-N in it. It's a T-I-U-S. So I'm like, I don't know how you get that wrong. So yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
They're just pulling it out of nowhere. But especially this weekend, we hope nobody mispronounces your name, especially with GLIACs coming up. It's a big one. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk to us a little bit about it. I mean, what you've kind of been working on, just, little things and stuff like that. And if you're excited for this weekend.
It's been a rough season. For me, honestly, it's been worse than I expected. I really had high hopes for this indoor season, but due to injuries, almost every week, it's been kind of hard to hit the marks I've been wanting to hit. But overall, I'm just looking forward to finishing the race. My main goal is just to be able to finish the race, and whatever result comes out of it is what happens. I'm just gonna look forward to outdoor season after that.
For sure.
Yeah, and especially the injury battle, I feel like a lot of people, when they look at running in collegiate athletics, I mean, you're going to have to deal with injuries. To go through an entire career without an injury, it's almost like hitting the lottery. I mean, just talk about the rehab process, because especially when you came in, I remember as a recruit, you said you had ran almost the entire track season on one torn ACL.
Yes.
Is that story true?
Yes, I ran/played my senior basketball season on a torn ACL.
Wow.
Just cause it was my last year. I was not gonna sit out my last year, and I wanted to prove something. I can't go out like that. So I had to complete my track season with that. I didn't run the best times, but it was senior year. Yeah. So
wow, that's impressive. Never missed a practice, never missed a game.
Nope.
With a torn ACL, and here I am missing 4 days with the flu. What am I doing with
Dude,
myself?
come on. So you got to step your game up, Brandon. I'm not
Goodness
gonna lie.
gracious.
Yeah, that's a dog, though. That's insane. I mean, wow, that's crazy. And then especially with the meets coming up and stuff like that, we've talked to a lot of people week before and day of and stuff with games or meets or stuff like that. What's your personality like when you have to race that day? Are you more of the kind of guy that's a little bit more happy-go-lucky, trying to keep things loose, or are you locked in from start to finish?
It depends. Last week, I was pretty locked in just because, I was out for 2 weeks because of another injury. So this is my meet for me to really, pop off something because I'm tired of, letting the injuries get in my way of getting the times I want to hit. So I was pretty locked in. A lot of the times I try to stay a little bit loose just because I try to lighten the mood with everybody else too. So I try to stay loose and support and all that. But when it's time for my race, I'm locked in. I'm locked in. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Is there anything that you use to stay locked in, like certain tunes on the playlist?
There's one song for sure that it's on repeat because it's it gets me in that zone. It's called "Who Run It" by G Herbo. So,
all
yeah.
right. Okay. G Herbo's got some hits, man.
Yeah, I like it. Is that a playlist too? Is it kind of more you're probably more just upbeat to get locked in and stuff? Because I know some people more like the mellow stuff.
Right?
Too.
Yeah. The mellow stuff is more when you still have an hour left of your race or before your race or something like that, and then once you're warming up, that's when the hype playlists come in, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And especially we talk with distance runners are notorious for having a routine as far as food before. Now on the sprinting side of things, it gets a little bit interesting because you guys are obviously racing a shorter distance, but with that, you're racing more times throughout a meet. So what do you guys do as far as food preparation? You guys are the sprinters as well with Chase and Bryson. And when you guys what do you guys do as far as eating throughout a meet and especially to prepare for it?
Yeah. Usually we try to get a decent breakfast because it takes a while for us before we have to race. So we get a decent breakfast, and then when we get to the meet, we just snack a little bit, the Uncrustables and all that.
Our team loves Uncrustables.
I feel like you guys try to go through a lot of those.
Oh yeah, we do.
So many boxes.
We do. We eat the Uncrustables, and just for a little something to be in our system. As far as me, I feel like I'm usually not hungry, but there's not that much food in my system either. You know what I'm saying? It's more water for me and that I consume before my races. And that's pretty much the routine right there. Yeah.
All right, there you go.
I was say you probably don't want to take a trip to the garbage can or something.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want too much food to make me heavier before the race and stuff.
Yeah.
So I eat something light, and then after all my races are done, then we get our pizza or whatever you get that day for the meet, and we eat. Yeah.
For sure. And especially now, Coach Justin Jackson is hopping in too, helping out with the sprinters and stuff like that. Just talk about that so far. He's a guy who's just kind of, hopped in and just kind of that surprise of having a mentor like that who can help you out.
Yeah, it's been a lot more structural, you know what I'm saying? He has given us a lot of great feedback and great workouts for us to be doing. He's there coaching us and stuff, and I've built a pretty good relationship with him. So that's another big factor, having that relationship with your coach and just being able to, connect on other levels besides track too, you know what I'm saying? So that's a good advantage of having a young coach because he just went through all these steps that we're going through right now. So his mind is fresh on all of that and to help us through all of it. So
yeah, for sure. It's super cool to have him. But we'll step back a little bit. We'll take you back to your time at St. Louis High School. When was the time you were you know what? College track. I'm going to give it a try. And what made you choose Ferris along the way?
Man, so a little backstory, right? I didn't actually get introduced to track until my 7th grade year. That's when I got introduced to all the sports, honestly, football, basketball, track. That's when I started, getting into that. Track was my first sport to ever do. I just fell in love with it because like I had good coaches that was like, had good ideas for me and like utilizing my ability at its fullest. So when I decided to like do track, at first football was my first choice of like, I wanted to do that in college really bad, but like due to like, all my injuries and stuff, I was like, maybe that's not the best route for me. And my track coach started to help me, get myself like on the map kind of, with colleges and stuff like that. Started to email colleges, my times and all that. And I chose Ferris State because number one, they had something that I was interested in going to as far as major wise. And number two, I knew, coming in, it was gonna be, a young team, and I really liked that part of it, and I wanted to be a part of that to build up from there. So that's probably the two reasons why I chose Ferris.
Okay. And what was the thing that you wanted to come for as academic wise?
HVAC.
Oh, okay. Yep. Right on. HVAC, yeah. I have a roommate that's in HVAC, fun fact.
Yeah, and we were chatting about that before the mics got hot. I mean, what is that like? I mean, you were talking about the schedule for this next semester. It's going to be a little bit tough, obviously. But I mean, what is that when you have to kind of balance that, especially HVAC is a pretty demanding major. I mean, how do you do that with both balancing practice, schedule with classes, and then making sure you got homework and stuff all squared away?
Yeah, man, it's tough. Like this year's was probably like my most flexible schedule as far as like HVAC goes, because I'm able to make it to, most of my practices besides, Thursdays I have to go like later because I can't, I have lab at 2 and practice at 2. But as far as next year, it's going to be tough because now practice time has changed. And like for HVAC, like you either get that class, like the classes, there's no option on like what times you can take those classes. You know what I'm saying? There's one time for those classes, there's one time for those labs. So like I have no choice pretty much. So I have to like try to figure out next year how, practices is going to work out for me and talk to my coach about it and stuff like that. Try to be a little bit flexible. So
yeah. It's a puzzle, man. It's a tough puzzle.
It is.
Tough puzzle to complete.
Absolutely, especially having such a specific major like HVAC is for sure. Yeah. One last question for you. We appreciate having you on the show. We'll ask every guest that we bring on, what's been your favorite thing about being here at Ferris State and being a Bulldog?
Just the environment, just the like the love you get from everybody. Like I feel like I know a lot of people know me on campus. It's easy to make friends on campus and like have those type of connections. So like that's been pretty, like pretty good for me because I coming into college, I didn't think I was gonna be able to like make as much friends as I have, but also being on a sports team kind of help you build that little community with the other athletes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, community, probably our number one answer here on the show.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome though. Iggy, thanks so much for coming on. We wish you the best of luck with GLIAC coming up and hopefully you kill it.
All right, appreciate it.
Big thanks to Iggy for joining us here on the show. We'll leave you with the Ferris State Sports Slate real quickly because we got a lot to cover for you, especially on Saturday. But first, Friday, men's tennis against Grace, 2 o'clock, as well as ice hockey, the first against Northern Michigan, 7:07 puck drop as well, taking place tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of stuff happening Saturday. Indoor track and field is going to be starting up the GLIAC Indoor Championships down in Saginaw Valley. So you can get the latest news on FerrisStateBulldogs.com. You also have men's tennis and women's tennis playing it up against Lewis at home, 10 a.m. for women's, 2 p.m. for men's. Also, in Davenport, basketball is going to be in action. Both teams, 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Women's go first. Men's go second. You also have softball having a doubleheader against Missouri St. Louis, who's going to be at 5. But before that, you can catch them in action against Thomas More down there at 3 o'clock. And then closing out this whole dang thing on Saturday, men's ice hockey is capping off the weekend. And the second to last week of CCHA regular season play at 5:07 against Northern Michigan for the second game of the weekend.
Woo, there you go. Sunday, indoor track and field GLIAC championships finale on Sunday, as well as women's tennis against Hillsdale at 10 o'clock, men's at 4 o'clock, and softball will play against Tiffin at 11 a.m. In Evansville, Indiana, to finish up their tournament play. But that's going to do it for this episode of Behind the Bulldogs. And until we talk to you next time,
take care, everybody.